Welcome to the Gifts for Glory podcast, where we celebrate and promote men and women using their gifts for God's glory. Know someone who is making an impact for God's kingdom using their gifts, talents, and passions? We'd love to meet them. Send us an email at podcast@giftsforglory.com. That's podcast@gifts4glory.com. And now, here is our host, Dave Ebert.
Good evening, friends and neighbors, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gifts for Glory podcast, whether you're watching live on social media or you're joining us on the Creative Motion Network or listening to the audio podcast released every week. Thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to have this episode. We've got the director of Church People, which is coming out on DVD and digital download September 3rd, Christopher Shawn Shaw, and the writer and star of the film, Thor Ramsey, coming up in just a few moments. Really excited to share this with you. If you haven't heard about Church People film, first thing I want to ask is, where have you been? Second thing is, I want to make sure that you are looking forward to buying the release so that you and your family, in a year and now 2 years of just so much stress and anxiety, take a break, take a couple hours, enjoy the film, bring your family, your friends over, and you're really going to enjoy Church People film. We're going to talk a lot about that coming up in this episode. Let's dive into our Devotions with Dave segment. Our Devotions with Dave segment is coming from Matthew 24:24. And with this verse, I've just seen so many people talking all over social media saying that, they believe certain things. And I just wanted to share this scripture because I think it's so important that we realize that Jesus knew that there would be people coming in the name of the Lord saying that I heard this or I believe this, and we have to test it against the word. Jesus tells us, for false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. So that verse is just Jesus again telling us, keep your eyes and ears open, but always refer back to the word and always refer back to the indwelling of the Holy Spirit so that you know what's true and what's not. Because unfortunately, even God's chosen ones might be deceived by some of these amazing feats and wonders that may happen, especially as we get closer to the end times. So keep your eyes and ears open, keep your heart pointed to God, and keep your head in the word. And you'll be able to fight against these false messiahs and false prophets who are going to rise up and perform even great signs and wonders to deceive. So that was just on my heart today as we go into our Devotion with Dave segment, Matthew 24:24, out of the New Living Translation. So let's get to our show for tonight. I want to first play the trailer to the movies. If you haven't seen it, haven't heard about it, you're going to really enjoy the trailer. And unlike a lot of movies lately, the trailer doesn't give it all away. So you're really going to enjoy this, and we'll be back with Thor Ramsey and Christopher Shawn Shaw after this amazing trailer.
I told you if we broke attendance records, I'd get the church logo tattooed on my arm.
Skip, remember back when we first started? All we did was preach the gospel.
Ooh, Superman works. I like Superman. Guy, what do you think?
What happened to you?
Me? Your dad is the one with the gimmicks.
The power of the Holy Spirit propels us.
I just went to church to get back to the gospel.
Problem is you're trying to get your message across.
The gospel?
Right. And ain't nobody listening to that.
For Good Friday and Easter, I need something big. Amen?
Bigger than the resurrection.
Bigger than anything we've ever done. National headlines.
Preach on the death and resurrection of Jesus.
Bam! An actual crucifixion.
Uh-oh.
By placing the nails through your palms in the right place, we hope to avoid major nerve damage.
Operation Stop Skip is a go. That's awesome.
You have to cancel this Good Friday stunt.
Don't be so dramatic, honey. Ooh, I like the rusty ones.
What are you gonna do?
I told him he's insane.
Been praying for you about that toe fungus.
This could be beneficial for all parties involved.
We foster a yes environment here.
God wanted me to marry you and you could be my wife.
I have an answer for you.
All right, that is the trailer, and now we are joined by we've got Christopher Shawn Shaw, and we got Thor Ramsey, the star and also writer of, or one of the writers, the initial writer of Church People. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
So let's dive right in. The movie asks one great question, and what's your opinion? Is the gospel enough?
Well, that's the point of the movie, so I hope it is.
And that's our show. No.
Otherwise, the movie's a false prophet. So there you go. It's like falls right in line with your devotional today.
So, Christopher Shawn Shaw, you've been with us back when we were audio only, and Thor's our first chance that you and I have met officially. We were together on another program many moons ago. The Cross program, where we had a whole group of people. So now I get you guys all to myself. I'm going to be very selfish and enjoy it. So tell us a little bit about the movie and how it happened. I know that Thor is pretty much your initial baby, and then you kind of shared it with several other writers. So tell us how it came about.
Well, basically, I was working on this screenplay about a youth pastor in crisis. It was called Youth Group. And I had about 30 pages of it. You know, I didn't really have I was just kind of doing a slice of life. It was really kind of inspired by the tone. The tone I was going for was Jon Favreau did a movie about, 2009?
1996.
1996. Wow. I was only a decade off. So anyway, that's how long this thing's been in development. But Jon Favreau, who's people may know from he directed Elf. He played Happy in the Marvel Universe. I think he created and wrote and directed a bunch of episodes of The Mandalorian. But he's a good actor and a good director. But he wrote it. I don't think he directed it, but he wrote a screenplay called Swingers, which was about a guy whose girlfriend breaks up with him, and he has 3 or 4 friends trying to help him get over it. And it was just kind of a slice of life comedy, and I liked the tone. So I was trying to take that tone and write it in the Christian subculture, since that's where I come from, and that's what I'm familiar with. So you write what you know. So I had a meeting with Sony Affirm. I don't know. Back in the day when I had a manager and a career I cared about, had a meeting with them.
Before I met him.
Yeah. So clearly, once I met Christopher, your career's on the downslide at that point anyway. But
wow.
You said it. It's like, when I cared, and then once I didn't care, Christopher came into my life. So but I pitched this. So I had a meeting with them, and I pitched them these 3 different ideas, and I had 2 fully developed, other ideas, but they were just for general market. They were general market comedies, and they wanted a faith-based. So they would like to see the youth group thing. So I went home and wrote it that week, sent it to him. And there's a guy, he's still over there. I always mention him because he's a great guy named Josh Nadler. And Josh called me up and gave me notes to do a rewrite. So I did a rewrite, and he did this 5 times. So I don't know if that's standard procedure, but that's how Josh handled me. And the last meeting we had on the phone, he says, what your script needs now is a big idea to bring all the characters together. So I'm like, okay, it is, but I have my, now I have my antennas up for a big idea. Well, I had a friend who's a church planter. He called me up and he goes, you're not going to believe what this mega church that we're all familiar with that's nationally known is doing for Good Friday. I'm like, well, what are they doing? I'm all ears. He says, they're actually crucifying someone on Good Friday. I go, there's no way. He goes, I'm looking at their social media. This is him. This is me. But I'm looking at their social media. I'm like, well, let me check it out. So I get on social media, and it turns out what they were doing was a passion play, but it was going to be so realistic that they had all these warnings about if you're squeamish and the sight of blood, et cetera, et cetera. But what hit me is that so many evangelical pastors, for whatever intentions, I assume good intentions, we're trying to draw people to church with such crazy ideas that for a second my friend and I actually believed that an American evangelical pastor would actually crucify someone on a Good Friday to draw people to church. And right then I go, there's the big idea. So that became the centerpiece of the story through, I probably did 30 drafts on my own. And then at the very end, Wes Halula and I spent probably a month together doing the final draft together, which was a great experience. Wes is a great guy. It really, that experience has led me to collaborate now with multiple people and do different screenplays now.
And how many screenplays have you written this year alone, Thor?
Well, probably 4.
Yep.
With
and working on a 5th one.
Yeah. So, but 10 total. But ask me how many have been produced.
Well,
how many? One.
Church people. But that was the kind of the idea. So at that point, then once I had the script, I just started looking for. I just wanted to get it made because I was thinking, give me $25,000 and I'm going to get a group of people together with and just shoot this thing because cameras had been advancing that rapidly, and that's when Christopher Shawn Shaw entered the program. I guess we were Facebook friends. We were Facebook friends. And he was making videos of his goldfish. And of course, that tells you a lot about Christopher's, status at that time. Lonely, single, really lonely. And so I'll turn it over to Christopher at that point on how we connected online.
So we met on Facebook in 2009. And I was familiar with him from Bananas comedy DVDs that I was getting through.
Appealing comedy for the whole family.
Appealing comedy for the whole family, yeah. And my whole family at the time consisted of me and eventually my goldfish at that time. But so I'm watching.
It's a foster fish, so that it didn't even work out for him. So.
You gotta let me talk.
Mm-hmm. I'm just interjecting to make him interesting.
Yeah, this is why I go to Thor for writing, because he spices it up, makes it funny. But so anyway, we were connected already, but then I started making these Goldie the Goldfish videos, and I was posting them and sending them to different comedians, and I think I probably messaged some to you, or you saw them on my wall or whatever. And he just sends me this kind of cryptic message out of the blue on Facebook that said, "Tell me about your film background, ...
There's nothing cryptic about that. It's a direct question. Like, you're making films, so tell me about your film background. I don't know what's cryptic about that. Like, if I said, like, so what does goldfish taste like? That might have been a little creepy, but there's nothing cryptic about either one of those. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I didn't know well, first of all, I didn't know he was a screenwriter. I knew he was a stand-up comic. That's what I knew. And I was a Thor Ramsey fanboy, so I loved his humor and his wit, but I didn't know he was doing screenplays. I didn't know he was acting. And so I thought, well, what's going on here? Does he have some kind of a show that he's hosting? He's going to interview filmmakers, or I had no idea. And so I responded to his very short message with a very long, verbose message. And at the end of the message, he at least read that part. I invited him to
shows about people obsessed with their pets. So I noticed you making films of your goldfish. I'd like you on the program.
So I invited him to be on our 168 film project, and this was back in 2010. And he graciously accepted, and that project became a very beloved short film called Skip Listening. It's some people that we know, it's still one of their favorite short films, if not their favorite short film. And we actually now have a feature-length script for that too.
We were runner-up Best Picture. We were runner-up.
We were runner-up Best Picture, runner-up Best Comedy, and runner-up Best Comedy Screenplay at the 168 Festival that year in 2010. So that was exciting. And we enjoyed that experience so much that we've done several 168 projects since. We've probably done, I don't know, 7 of those, 8 of those. And then we've done some other shorts. And so anyway, we're prepping auditioning people and we're prepping to shoot Skip Listening, and he tells me about this script that he wants to direct and star in called Youth Group. And he was just trying to network with filmmakers to get it made. And he was thinking,
really looking for a cameraman, but
yeah.
he couldn't be depended upon for that. So,
yeah. So anyway, as we're filming Skip Listening, for some reason he decides that he doesn't want to direct it anymore. And I'm like, well, who do you want to direct it? And of course, I'm hoping he would say me. And he said, well, you could direct it. And that's literally how I initially got the gig.
I still wanted to direct it, but what I realized is when you're making a film, it's a community project. You need to develop a team of people. So some things you have to give up.
Yeah.
And thankfully he gave up directing it. So so then later that year we did a proof of concept trailer. We took the script at that time and we spent a 12.5-hour shoot day compiling. I think we shot like 7 or 8 scenes from that script. And then Matthew Reithmeyer put together a trailer. And by the end of the year, the last December of 2010, it was online and we started pitching it.
How long was that trailer? About 2 minutes or a minute and a half or 2.5?
It was over 2 minutes. I think it was about like 2:08 or 2:15 or something like that. Yeah.
All right.
It was it was basically, hey, here's what this movie could look like if we had funding.
Yeah.
And it was monumentally helpful because eventually,
even then, go ahead.
What's that?
I was going to say, even then, people liked the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, people loved the trailer, and some people thought it was already a made movie.
Oh, that's right. I got contacted by a youth conference. They wanted me to premiere the film there. Like I had to tell them, like, well, I appreciate that, but the film doesn't exist yet. It's just a trailer that we're hoping to get the film made.
So for a couple of years, I blasted it all over social media, embarrassed Thor.
Blasted is like an understatement. It was literally, it was like the guy had his job was to post it every 5 minutes somewhere in the universe, but it worked.
It worked. Eventually, Stephen Baldwin saw it. He reached out. He was like, who do I speak with directly to see how I can best support your vision for this project? And soon we're emailing, and then that turned into a conference call, and that turned into an in-person meeting, and which lasted nearly 3 hours. And that was 2013. So with Stephen Baldwin on board to help find the funding, it still took about 3.5 years before cameras rolled. We shot it in 2016, and we didn't have a distribution at that time. We had to find distribution. So that's part of the reason why it took so long for now, a big part of the reason. So it released in theaters this year in March. It was a 3-day Fathom event, which is typically only one night, but because of COVID and stuff, they negotiated 3 days. And it's coming out on DVD and digital. So
and we were number 10 at the box office
on September 3rd. What?
And we were number 10 at the box office.
We were number 10 at the box office on a per screen average. Yes.
There you go. Which is pretty good for a Fathom event.
Yeah, very good.
Especially during COVID.
Especially during COVID, yeah. We were in about
11 theaters and 3 people. So, still.
I know you like that joke, Thor, but we were really in about 400 theaters nationwide.
I know. So, it was during COVID.
It's
it's expressing my frustration with the disappointment that we didn't put off the release until the theaters were open again. Because I didn't even get to see it in the theater. But anyway, let's move on with my bitterness.
Well, I was actually in Florida. My mom had just had heart surgery, so I left her behind for an evening to go to Orlando to see it, and it was well worth it. And
that's not a good plug. Like, my mother was dying, but I left her to go see her movie. Like, wow, okay, but at the same time.
Can we use that in the marketing? Can we?
Yes,
I left my dying mother to see church people, and it was great.
It was worth the guilt trip.
There you go. Now
it was worth the guilt trip.
Yeah, that's great. I left my mother in the hospital to see this movie. It was worth the guilt trip. We're gonna use that in the promo. Is it September 3rd? I keep telling people September 7th.
No, it's September 3rd. What
Wow, I got to get
Where
this
have you
straight.
been?
Well, I got the first week right.
So, Thor, were you always planning to be the lead, or was this something that just kind of felt like?
Well, that was my plan.
All right.
I write everything with that's really how I got into stand-up, because back in the day when I started stand-up in 1987, it was the lowest rung of show business. And, I wish the computer technology back then would have been what we have today. It probably would have been, ahead of the game, but I wasn't ahead of the game. I was behind the game delivering pizzas for Domino's. So that really put you behind the game. But I started stand-up because it was a way to just start writing and seeing if people responded to your material. And then the goal was to do stand-up and then write screenplays. But I naively, and we're always naive when we undertake something that we've never done before, stand-up is hard work. So, I had to really focus on working hard. But the nice thing about stand-up is you are writing. But my initial routine sounded like Captain Kirk, because I was a writer. Everyone develops differently in terms of their material, and I wrote mine out, like literally my pauses, everything. That I'd write. Those were all scripted. All my gaffes were even scripted. So, but my delivery, it's like I'd have to memorize it, and I go up on stage, and you're like, it's the first time you're delivering it, and all of a sudden you're delivering your lines like you're Captain Kirk from the original. I actually had a comedian say that to me once. He says, you sound like Captain Kirk when you deliver your jokes. And I realized it was because I didn't know my material very well. So, but anyway, so I'm writing, delivering material, and that's that was the goal. But you do get sidetracked by doing something like that, because you're focusing on stand up, and your career there starts moving along.
Traveling a lot, I'm sure.
Traveling a lot. And some of it's just to be honest, you're young. When you're younger, you're just undisciplined. You don't know how to manage your time. Yeah, I had so much time on the road. I literally could have written. Well, even now you're going, but some of it is, I will say this, and people can disagree. Because I've noticed this. This is one of my I don't know, what's the term I'm looking for? Irritations. Pet. I hate the term pet peeve. That's why I avoided it. But I guess I don't.
One of his irritations is the term pet peeve.
Yeah. Anyway, so
for those who are tabulating,
there are these youngsters now, and I call them youngsters. That they're 30-somethings, and they're in charge of major Christian publications. That's just I'm old school. That's just too young. These should be 60-year-old people in charge of these things, because it takes you that long in terms of your life experience to really even now So now I'm not going to say my age because it's showbiz. So what age can I play is the question. So forget the questions about age. The issue is this. It's taken me this long to get to the point where I can sit down and collaborate with someone and really write a good first draft within 2 or 3 months. But I would even say if you have a strong idea that you're excited about, Brad Stein, really, we had our first draft done within 2 weeks. And that's the best thing. And now we've honed it since then, but that project, in my opinion, is the best thing I've ever worked on. So I'm really excited about that one, called The Revenge of Adam and Eve. But Brad Stein and I wrote that together. But I couldn't have done this in my 20s, my late 20s, or my early 30s even, just because your life experience is not the same. It takes time to get, Jerry Seinfeld will tell you that. Matter of fact, the guy who wrote the book, what was the book? Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book years ago. I don't remember the name of the book, but the whole point of the book is you got to do things over and over and over and over again to get good at it. So, and that takes what? Time, and time takes what? Age. So you 30-somethings shouldn't be in charge of major Christian publications. I'm sorry. I'm sticking with that. Matter of fact, I've seen you guys are leaning, and you're certainly aggressive. And I think you're leaning progressive. I'm not saying you're leaning progressive because you're young, but it's a tragedy for that. I'm thinking of a particular publication that I'm not going to name right now because it's a flagship, nationally known Christian publication that's prestigious. And I feel like they're really leaning, just in terms of the articles they choose even. Now I'm just getting a soapbox. Can't do that. But anyway, that's my opinion. I love you young people, but you got to get old before you should be in charge of things. That's my opinion. Okay? A 30-year-old president would be a disaster. We've got a 70-year-old president, and that's a disaster. So I anyway, I destroyed my own. premise there. Anyway, go ahead. Take over. Do something. I'm sorry. I just started ranting.
That's good stuff.
If you just let him go, he'll go.
I'll go.
He'll go.
I mean, I could just do this for just a little bit, and just go ahead, Thor.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
The problem is I could go. I could go is a problem.
No.
Yeah. I would. Christopher knows I would go off. Just keep talking.
And so it's just, I find it just interesting how much it transitioned, easily it transitioned from writing your stand-up to writing scripts, because you've got 10 you've written, and you've got this new one you're talking about with Brad Stein. How close is that to maybe seeing production?
Yeah. Well, I just sent it out to people about a week ago.
Or less, yeah.
No news is good news, I guess. So, but the problem is it's a little more. It's going to be at least probably about a 3. The budget's higher than church people.
Yeah, it'll be about a $3 to $5 million budget.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of visual effects.
I think, Christopher, say something about that script in terms of.
It's one of the most unique, if not the most unique script, especially Christian script I've ever read.
There you go. That's what I want you to say.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's out of the box. Adam and Eve are in it. I mean, it's funny. So it's great.
But I will say this about church people. We need to say this
for
about church people before we run out of time here. But it's a satire, but it's not a mean satire.
Yes.
We're satirizing, the whole thing of the point that they really did a great job with. I cannot believe I can believe it, but the Collide Media did such a great job with the trailer. I just cannot praise those guys enough for the trailer they made, but they really hit it in that, is the gospel enough? That's the question that we ask. And of course, I always tell people this: you can only satirize what you love. Mm-hmm. And we love Jesus and the church, and that's why it's a gentle. You can even say it's a gentle rebuke to the church for getting away from really what makes the church powerful, and our great sound systems and stages and worship bands and tricky backgrounds, whatever. Those aren't what make us effective. So the gospel is what makes the church effective.
Those things can get people in the door, but it doesn't keep them there, because they can get that anywhere.
That's exactly it.
Them is the gospel.
Yeah, entertainment does it better. That's the whole thing. If we're just looking to be entertained, there's a whole industry called the entertainment industry. That's what they really focus on doing. So that's not what the church is about. Otherwise, God wouldn't have put Leviticus in the Bible.
Right. or the genealogies.
There you go. Clearly, he has a different point of view of fun than we do in terms of like what church should be about. And I'm not saying we have to be frowning all the time and everything.
Yeah.
But
we're not fuddy-duddies.
No, not at all.
Okay.
But Thor's rant against young people in charge of stuff.
I wasn't ranting against young people. I'm just saying they shouldn't be in charge of things. Unless you're doing your own startup, fine. But when you're dealing with heavy subjects and you're dealing with subjects that are influencing subjects, that's fine. If you're starting up a diddly dot, do that. Fantastic. Start up your zing zang. Start up your zing zang and your bleep blop. You should be in charge of all those things.
Yeah.
But I had a daughter today that had to go to my wife took her to the emergency room for a stomach issue. And so I've got my other daughter watching our 3-year-old. So I don't mean to rush here, but I'm on a time crunch.
Gotcha.
I told her a certain time. So
sure.
If somebody would stop talking.
Well, the one thing we didn't mention is that Thor is a lead pastor. So when you give a pastor a microphone, it's hard to
yeah.
There you go.
So since you got a time crunch, one of my favorite parts of my show is I always ask for a testimony. So Thor, tell us about how you came to know Jesus And was it from a Christian family, or did you find him kind of on your own? How did you?
Yeah, so I grew up
music?
during a time when there was still cultural Christianity. So I grew up in a home that we were what's the term? We were Christmas, Easter's, Priesters, and but I'd never heard the gospel ever. I got to my freshman year of college, didn't even know what the resurrection was. So, and when I entered college as a freshman, I didn't believe in morality. Postmodern wasn't that wasn't the catchphrase at the time, but it was it was being taught, but it wasn't as culturally known as, you can say postmodernism now, people kind of know what you're talking about, but that's basically, for the most part, I think I was even more consistent than postmodernism people, because I was truly a budding nihilist. I didn't know what nihilism was at that time, but now that I do, I really see that I didn't believe there was right or wrong. There just wasn't. And you can convince me there was. Everything truly was a social construct, but I didn't believe that social construct had meaning. And that's the difference that I have now with people that believe that you can get morality from a social construct. I never did believe that even before I was a Christian, because it's still an untenable position to take. All that to say, I still was pessimistic about humanity because I'd had some girlfriends. So I didn't believe people were basically good at heart. I just had I believed in basically, I believed in original sin without even understanding what original sin was. And that was really my introduction. I had roommates in college. My roommate in college was a Christian, and he had friends, and they were talking to me and go, "What do you think the greatest problem with humanity is?" I'm like, "Narcissism. We're just completely self-centered individuals. Everyone is, And so he's like, "I'd agree. We'd use a different word. We call it sin." That was really my introduction. And then from there, I was all ears. What's the gospel? And for me, it was night and day. That's the short answer.
At what point was comedy a part of it? Was it before or after that?
No, comedy's always been there. I wanted to be a stand-up when I was a junior in college, junior in high school. Matter of fact, I had a friend come to me one day at lunch and said, "I dreamt about you last night. You were on the Tonight Show." And she goes, "You had a good set." And years later, after getting a job and being an operations supervisor at a trucking company after college and just hating it, I thought, if you're not going to follow your own dreams, you might as well follow somebody else's. So went into stand-up after that.
Now, the question I'm sure that everyone may want to ask, and please don't take offense, is Thor your given name or is that a stage name?
It's my legal name.
Legal name.
So it's not my given name. It's one of those things it's a long story, but I changed it in 1987 when I started stand up. And then my wife's name is Dieneke, which is Dutch and hard to pronounce. And so Thor and Dieneke go really well together. But so I've just kept it,
Nice.
So that's the short answer. And I really got to run here because I've got a daughter that has to take off. So she can't watch our 3-year-old anymore. And I can't let him watch himself because he's 3 and he's a boy. And he is like raising a Viking. He is. So,
well, I totally understand. And Thor, thanks for joining us. Family first, and prayers to your daughter to get better. Hopefully,
Dave, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Godspeed.
You keep talking. Keep plugging us, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. God bless you guys.
Over. Bye. All right. Now that he's out of the way, we can talk.
Jeez Louise. Wow. I love it.
Family, and that's the joy of doing live broadcasts is like, stuff happens.
Neither of us knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. So let's dive into your story too, because you were on the show when we were audio only back in December, but I don't know if people remember or if they missed it. Tell us about your story and how Jesus found you all the way in Ohio.
My story starts in the womb.
Ooh.
Do we have time?
Sure. Now the question is that did it have a window? So was it a womb with a view?
A womb with a view. Ba-dum-bum. He'll be here all night. Try the veal. So I grew up in a very small. It's not even a town or a city. It's a village. I grew up in the village of Plainfield. I'm not kidding. When you drive into the I wanted to say town. When you drive into the little village, it says the village of Plainfield on the sign. Has less than 200 people. Might even be less than 150 people. I'm not sure, but it's not a lot of people. Usually when you say you're from a small place, they're guessing in the thousands. Try low hundreds. And there was a Methodist church there. I started going to Sunday school when I was in elementary school, and that kind of came about where I think my dad was like, "Hey, the neighbor kids are going to Sunday school. Do you want to go?" and the thing with my dad was, if you said yeah, you wanted to do something, then you did it. Like if you want to do piano lessons, you do it and you practice. And if you want to learn how to play a sport or something, then you do it and you practice and you take classes and whatnot. And so once I said yes to that, I was pretty much stuck, so to speak, going to Sunday school. So I grew up basically always believing there's a God, but my theology was extremely limited and shallow. I mean, I remember as a kid thinking to myself, well, why? I think I actually had conversations with God about this. Like, God, why can't you and the devil just like make up and be friends? Like, why can't you, So, I mean, just so like kind of just like not there, theologically speaking. And it wasn't until junior high that I think it was that I heard like a clear representation of an invitation to accept the gospel. And I was actually at, even though it was a very small community, we had a youth group. It wasn't very big, but our youth group went to see a Billy Graham Evangelical Association movie. And I forget the title of the movie, but in the movie, the characters in the movie went to a Billy Graham crusade, and he was giving the altar call. And I just remember sitting there in the movie theater going, if I were one of those characters, I would go forward. And lo and behold, at the end of the movie, Billy Graham came on the screen and invited the theater goers to come forward and accept Christ. And so I went forward, talked to a prayer counselor, and I remember leaving there feeling forgiven, like feeling clean and feeling like I was excited. But I can't tell you what the next day was like. I can't tell you what the next week was like. It was just sort of same old, same old. My theology at the time was, I believe in Jesus, I'm going to heaven. That was pretty much it. And it wasn't until after college that I started getting serious about my faith. And when I moved from Ohio to Southern California initially, one of my priorities was to find a Bible-believing church. And I landed at the Church on the Way with Pastor Jack Hayford. And got plugged in there, and I thought that was a really balanced teaching, and I learned a lot. I mean, there were gobs of things I used to think were contradictions in the Bible, and through solid teaching and understanding a little bit more about what the original text says and means, the Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew, that's the original language, and when you translate that language into English, it's not a clear-cut translation all the time. For example, our one word love has like 4 or 5 different words in the Greek, eros, agape. And so when you see the word love in English, that doesn't mean it means the exact same thing as you think it does at face value when you first read it. So understanding context is key when it comes to scripture. And I found out that there weren't contradictions in the Bible. The things that I thought were contradictions weren't. It was my lack of understanding.
At the at Jack Hayford's church, were you only being taught from the pulpit, or did you get into small groups?
I was part of a couple of groups there. There was one called the College Connection, and I'm still connected to a small handful of people there. And then there was another room, I think it was called Next Generation, which was the group above the College Connection, I sort of double dipped and went to both.
Yeah.
So I made friends in each one, and I did get involved in a small group as well. Shout out to Tom Borga. He and his wife Crystal opened up their home, and Tom led a small group of men from the Church on the Way. And so so I was involved in that small group. I was involved in a small group with a fellow College Connection person who I'm still connected to today. Shout out to Gary Schertz, who actually did my website, ChristopherShawnShaw.com. Gary Schertz with Oak Valley Digital did that. Let me shout out again, Christopher Shawn. There it is, ChristopherShawnShaw.com. Gary Schertz did that. So I'm still connected to him today. Definitely it was the larger gathering because it's a big church. There's 2 campuses. Actually, there's 3 campuses now, I think, or maybe there's just 2. Anyway, it's a big fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot there and in small groups and on and on. So.
And you moved to LA, to California, pursuing initially acting. What led the transition to going more behind the camera?
I sort of fell into it. In college, my parents got me a half-inch VHS slim cam. It was only like 4.5 pounds, and it was a thin model of a home video camera, basically, and it shot well, standard definition, of course, but still. And so I would get these ideas for scenes and stuff, and I wished I could be in front of the camera and behind the camera at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
But only God can be omniscient, or no, omnipresent and omniscient, obviously, but omnipresent. So I couldn't do that. And I don't know, just over the years, I found myself more and more behind the camera and more enjoying it. I did a lot of, when I first moved to Southern California for a few years, I did a lot of extra work, background acting in movies and TV and music videos and commercials. And every once in a while featured. And that was fun, but it started feeling like a dead end gig because I wasn't really advancing. On a movie set, there's a lot of hurry up and wait.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes you'll be there all day and not even be used once. And so it started to feel like a dead end. And so, I got involved in a ministry group called the Interceding Ensemble, which it wasn't officially a Church on the Way group, but we would meet at the Church on the Way, and a number of people who attended the Church on the Way were in that ensemble. And so I would do acting there and some directing there as well. But just over the years, my heart changed, and I found myself more and more wanting to create, more on the behind the scenes side than in front of the camera. Every once in a while, I still show up in front of the camera, but certainly not as often. And the passion for that isn't there as much as it used to be.
And I don't know if they give the smaller roles awards, but the efficient stagehand, I think it's deserving of at least a nod.
Well, thank you. It's an uncredited role at that too. It's on IMDb, but it says in parentheses uncredited. But I didn't get a listing in the role credits at the end of the movie. But yes, I did cast myself as the efficient stagehand. If you see, I should say when you see church people, if you haven't already, when you see church people within the first couple minutes or so, I run out on the stage and give Thor Sharpie. It's literally a run-on roll.
Now, what was your motivation for that role when you went?
I want to be on camera. It's my director cameo.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we mentioned or we talked about before you came on the air is you've got another project that's out. You can find it on your website and your YouTube channel. Tell us about Something Smells Funny.
It's actually not on my website yet. I need to get on that. But Yeah, when you go to my website, you'll see the Church People trailer. But if you go to Tubi, I think is it tubitv.com? Is that the site? Anyway, there's something called Something Smells Funny. I want to give a big shout out to our executive producer, Dr. Tim Watson. Real name, Dr. Watson. I know that sounds kind of funny with Sherlock Holmes and everything, but that's his real name. Unlike Thor. But so yeah, Dr. Watson is our executive producer on it, and we shot 4 episodes, and then we edited together a 5th episode, which is actually episode 1 if you go to Tubi, but it's a featurette episode with highlights of the 4 episodes. So it's a highlight episode basically. They're about 20 to 25 minutes long, and it's hilarity in the kitchen. Scott Wood nails it as host, and he has different guests on. We had Bobby Collins, Jimmy Brogan, Mark Christopher Lawrence, and Victoria Jackson. And they're hilarious. They're great episodes. You learn how to make a healthy dish, and it's really, really fun. If you go on, go to the Facebook page, excuse me, facebook.com/something smells funny. And you can see the pinned post there where we announced that it was coming to Tubi. There's a trailer there. You can watch the trailer for it. And of course, go to Tubi and watch all 5 episodes for free. So very fun.
I'm going to go grab that link now so we can post it in there. And so was working with Scott Wood, is he somebody that you've worked with before, or was this kind of the first time out?
Yeah, but first time working with Scott was actually, it came through Thor, actually, because he and Thor go way back because they're comedy buddies. And it was 2012. We were working on a short film called How I Met My Father. As a matter of fact, that short film is on Amazon Prime. So if you're a Prime member, it's free there. But it's called How I Met My Father. And Thor invited Scott Wood to come on and play a thug in that movie alongside another really superb, nice actor / stuntman, Calvin Harrison. So shout out to Cal Harrison. So Scott and Cal played the thugs in How I Met My Father, which again, you can see on Amazon Prime. It's a short, it's an allegorical comedy about being adopted into the family of God. And very fun. We did it as a 168 film project initially in 2012. And it was, if I remember correctly, it was runner-up audience favorite. There wasn't an award for that, but it's just nice to know that it almost made audience favorite. But so yeah, very fun. That's the first time I worked with him, and Scott had such a great time on it that when his Scott and Tim Watson are like best buds, and so Tim was telling him, he runs into the same old thing in his pediatric clinic of, just some pet peeves of like, people don't know how to act when they come to the clinic. They don't know proper clinic etiquette, just, common sense things to some people, but to others not. And so he wanted to tackle it in a humorous, non-mean-spirited way.
Right.
And Scott's like, I know the guy. And so he remembered working with me on How I Met My Father, and we started doing comedy sketches about proper clinic etiquette, and Dr. Watson would play them on monitors in his waiting rooms and in the lobby area of his clinics. And so every couple of years or so, we do a shoot for a couple or more days, doing more sketches, or maybe he'll do some one man talking to the camera kind of thing about different topics. And we try to make it funny when possible. And Scott Wood plays multiple characters, of course, and we bring in other actors, and it's really, really fun. And so in August of 2019, we did 3 days of new sketches that they're actually not even out yet. Hopefully they'll be out soon. And we did 3 days in the kitchen, and 1 day was with some of Dr. Watson's staff at Mission Pediatrics. Shout out to missionpediatrics.com. And then 2 days we did Something Smells Funny. So the 1 day with his staff was basically our warm up, and let's get ready to do this big show with all these comic guests. And the idea is, it's basically there's stand up comedy in it. There's making a healthy dish that the guest brings, the recipe for, and then they show you how to make it and banter back and forth, and just it's really fun and funny. It's really fun and funny. You watch that trailer and you'll know if it's your cup of tea or not by just watching that trailer. And that's pretty much the show. It's really well done. And I'm serious. Scott Wood nails it as the host. Nails it. We had 4 different comedians, 4 different personalities, and he navigated the waters of that superbly.
And Scott Wood's hilarious. He is. He's
also an impressionist. He does, a couple hundred or 300 impressions. I mean, like he's really, really talented.
Do you ever utilize that? Maybe do some prank calling or?
No. I might have to pay him to do that. I'm not exactly rolling over in the dough here in expensive Northern California, but yeah, I don't know if I imagine he probably has, maybe, I don't know, but we've done some bartering before where I'll do something for him and he'll do like a voiceover for me. And he did a voiceover for one of my 168 film project crowdfunding campaigns. That was pretty funny. But yeah, he does the movie trailer guy voice, and he does all kinds of different, famous people impressions. He's hilarious. Yeah. And Dr. Watson is kind of like a big kid. I mean, he knows when to be serious and how to be serious, but he's a kid at heart. And so he tries to make pediatrics fun for his staff and for his clientele. And doing those sketches and doing something like Something Smells Funny is an outlet of one of many layers of his creative genius.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm looking forward to catching up on the show. So much good stuff. But obviously, really looking forward to September 3rd.
September 3rd, church people, digital and DVD. So virtually anywhere you buy stuff. And then probably next year it'll be on some kind of a streaming platform. But for now, digital and DVD, September 3rd. Let us know what you think.
Is the streaming platform, is that something that's in the works, or is that something that you're going to work on once the DVDs are out?
That's a really good question, and that's probably a question for Collide Media Group. I just know that they mentioned that streaming probably wouldn't be until next year.
Okay.
Right. And I don't want to make too big of a stink out of this, but I also heard the possibility of bringing it back to theaters next year as well. I don't know that for sure, but I heard that it was something being considered. Especially in light of, when it came out the first time, theaters were basically just opening up again after a year of COVID.
Right.
Fathom Events was definitely optimistic that we would have done much better had it been pre-COVID. So there might be a bring back. We'll see. That's something you can be in prayer for, and if there's enough people getting the DVD and enough people downloading it, then that might further ensure that a bring back could happen theatrically.
For all the updates, you can sign up for the mailing list at churchpeoplefilm.com.
Yeah, when you go to churchpeoplefilm.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and you can sign up there. And they do not bombard your email. You're not going to get a ton of emails from them. I mean, weeks go by before you hear anything. I mean, sometimes months. So they basically give you an update when there's an update to give.
Not to just say, hey, we're still here. There's actually information in those.
There's actually information. Yeah.
So churchpeoplefilm.com, and scroll to the bottom and sign up for the mailing list so you can learn about more details on the DVD and digital download release. Also learn about potential return to theaters. And here's the thing that you got to know about going back to the theaters. And this was a revelation from the Lord through my pastor a few weeks ago. When you go to the theater, you buy your popcorn, and they've got the spout to add more butter. attach a straw so you can actually get down into the popcorn bucket and coat all levels.
You heard it here. There's a life hack. There's your theatrical life hack right there.
So whether or not Church People Film gets back to churchpeoplefilm.com is for the updates. Church People is the name of the movie. Whether or not it gets back to the theaters, it'll be awesome if it does, because then you actually be with people and do that popcorn trick. But
and the other thing I should note too is right now we're about halfway through the month. They're still doing church screenings and school screenings of Church People as well. So if you go to churchpeoplefilm.com and click on the button there that says host a showing, then there's an online form you can fill out there to bring it to your church, bring it to your school district. They are doing ticketed screening events as well, and the hosting venue gets a small percentage of the ticket sales for that event. So, and I think there's even like a range, like you can set the price for like different economic levels or whatever for the price of the ticket. So it's a pretty good deal. Last month they were doing $5 tickets. Wow. It was like a movie. It was like a summer movie special. But I don't think they're doing that one anymore. But it is still available to see in group settings. You can do a ticketed screening. So churchpeoplefilm.com, host a showing.
And what a great way to bring people back into the church, because the study after study is showing that overall attendance is down because of work post-COVID, and in America, basically, the church attendance has been going down anyway. So what a great way to get the families back in, enjoy some comedy, and it's not mean comedy, and it's also not the cheesy comedy, because I know that a lot of Christian films, when they try to be funny, they try to be like super G rated and like, oh, we can't joke about that. But like Thor talked about,
I mean, if you were here at the beginning and saw the trailer, two Baldwin brothers are in it, Stephen and Billy, China Phillips, Michael Monks, who's a veteran TV and film actor. You've probably seen him in like Air Force One and stuff like that. We got legitimate actors in this thing. Thor does a good job. I mean, and he's hilarious. And I'm sure, Donald Faison, Joey Fatone. I mean, we have a stellar cast, and I'm very, very thankful to God for that. And I like to say that no matter where you are, whether you're a Christian or not, or if you are a Christian, no matter where you are in your faith journey, there's going to be at least one or more characters in the movie you're going to relate to.
Mm-hmm.
There just is, because there's such an eclectic bunch of characters on the screen, and you'll relate to somebody.
And anybody that goes to a church that's big enough to have greeting teams and worship teams and this, where it's different people serving, you're going to recognize like, oh yeah, we do have a greeter like that, or yeah, we have that interesting worship leader. And there are some churches that have a pastor skip.
Yep.
But I loved how you worded that a few moments ago. You said we have some really legit actors, and Thor does a good job too.
Well, this is his first feature as an actor, and it's my first feature of this stature as I've done some documentary type stuff before, but nothing that made it to this level or anything. So this is my comedy feature film directorial debut. And so, Thor is a good actor. He is.
Yeah.
And he's hilarious, and he's great fun to have on set. He's a hilarious, what I think is challenging is when you can look at words on a page, black and white, no visual representation but the words and your imagination, and you can laugh out loud.
Mm-hmm.
That's Thor Ramsey's writing.
Yeah.
Whether it's a book, because he writes books as well, whether it's a book, whether it's a script, I laugh out loud when I read it. So, and if you can laugh out loud on the script, as long as you execute it well on the screen, then you're going to laugh out loud. And I've heard stories of people laughing out loud. I've heard stories of people crying at the end. Some people sobbing. Multiple people have told me that they've sobbed at the end because of the climax. And you've seen the film, so you can attest to what I'm talking about. But it doesn't end on a downer. These are good tears. These are good tears.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end on a downer. So
the fog machine at the end. I love the tease because the whole time you're like, are they going with this full on cheesy weird? And then it's like, yes. And I think it's marvelously executed. The story is great. The climax is great. The partial nudity near the end.
Yeah. Oh my golly, that it's funny you say that because I was looking. Did you read the Movie Guide review?
I have not. No.
Movie Guide has categories such as nudity, and I remember when I first looked at it and it said partial nudity. I'm like, what are they talking about? Yeah, you see Skip shirtless. You see a male shirtless. That's the partial nudity they were referring to. But I mean, like, if you just take that completely out of context, and it's in a very dramatic moment in the movie.
Yeah.
So if you take that completely out of context and you just see a category, partial nudity, like, what does that mean? Like, oh, yeah, that threw me for a loop when I first saw that. I was like, what are they partial? What are they talking about? Oh.
And the thing is, like you said, it's at a very important moment, and there's a very important statement being made.
Oh yeah, it's
a lot
very
of
poignant. Yes.
Yeah. So,
yes.
And we're talking very vaguely because people need to see it if you haven't already.
Yeah.
And if you've seen it, get ready to see it again. Whether you want to host a screening event at your church to bring people back, or you want to get the DVD or a digital download and maybe watch it as a small group. You're not gonna regret it. You're investing in the kingdom because Christopher and Thor, they've got some really great stuff down the pike. They just need the residuals coming from church people to help kind of fund this and push this stuff forward.
I mean, honestly, if you like it, then please tell people about it, and please purchase either a download or a DVD, because those numbers, forgive me for being brass tacks, but those numbers communicate to people who might want to fund more content like it, that there's an audience out there for it. So please spread the word all over social media, spread the word verbally, email people. Obviously, if you like it. If you don't like it, then I don't want you to promote something you don't like. But if you like it, please, churchpeoplefilm.com, sign up for updates and tell your family and friends and enemies.
Yep. And here's the thing: if you don't like it, just remember what the prophet Flower used to say: "If you can't say nothing nice, don't say nothing at all." Actually, I think that was Thumper, wasn't it? I misquoted.
If you don't like it, email Thor at Thor.
Well, we are winding down. I want to make sure to go to churchpeoplefilm.com. Also connect on.
What was that website again?
Churchpeoplefilm.com.
One more time?
Churchpeoplefilm.com. I don't like the way I said it. Let me try this. Churchpeoplefilm.com.
Ooh, radio voice.
Yes. And the face for radio.
Yeah.
And the lighting for radio right now.
Yeah.
I need you to come out to Chicago and help me light my room so that I look decent.
I'm not a gaffer, dude. I'm a director and creative producer and creative consultant. I'm not a cinematographer. I'm not a gaffer. That's why I hire those people. And speaking of which, since we're talking about them, I want to give a shout out to Bo Hakala, who was our DP, our cinematographer on Church People, and a shout out to Brock Kingsland. Oh my golly, did I say his last name wrong? It's either Kingston or Kingsland, but his first name is Brock. I remember that. But I mean, yeah, like they did a stellar job. The movie looks beautiful, and we shot on Red Epic cameras. I love shooting on Red. I say that as though like I shot it. I didn't. I didn't shoot it. I wasn't. There's if you go to my Facebook page, you can see a picture of me holding one of the red epics, making a goofy face because that's about all I know and how to use a red camera is just to hold it and make a goofy face. Tony Oberstar was one of our camera operators, helped out Bo quite a bit, and so yeah, we had a great team. We were surrounded by consummate professionals. And that's why it turned out so well.
Surrounded by consummate professionals and Thor Ramsey.
Well, I did say we. I meant yes. Thor and me were surrounded by consummate professionals. And Thor Ramsey. I love Thor.
Yeah.
He's been a long-time film collaborator, and I hope, God willing, many, many more years to come.
Lord willing, and the creek don't rise.
Amen.
So, yeah, churchpeoplefilm.com. Connect on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just look, search for Church People. Facebook is at Church People Movie, and Instagram is at Church People.
And Twitter is at Church PPL Movie. Because if you want to hashtag it, then please hashtag Church People Film.
Hashtag Church People Film. Make sure you spread the word because
if you like that trailer, share the trailer. Share it on all your platforms. And if you want to natively upload a trailer, shoot me an email and I can get you a native upload for the different platforms, for an Instagram, for Facebook. I can get you a native upload of the trailer. We have a 30-second trailer as well, and we have the full trailer that you saw at the top of the hour here. And I'm told new trailers are coming out for the digital and DVD release. What was the date for that again, Dave Ebert?
That was September the 3rd.
September 3rd on digital and DVD, virtually everywhere you buy movies.
Yes, and September the 3rd is perfect because that's that's when the checks hit and it's time to go out and get a movie.
There you go.
I don't know. That's a Thursday, right?
It's a Friday, I think.
It's a Friday. Okay.
I believe it's a Friday.
Yeah, I should know that, but 9/3.
I will look on my computer calendar right now. It is
a Friday.
You beat me.
Sorry.
I clicked the wrong thing. It is a Friday. I confirmed it.
So Friday the 3rd, be sure to check it out. DVD and digital download. The more, the merrier.
And on demand. On demand.
Yeah. Oh, on demand too.
It'll be on demand. Yep.
Sounds great. So be sure to get the updates at churchpeoplefilm.com. And Christopher, there are two segments as I get my English. Two final segments. You've gone through this before, but it's going to be a little bit different. This is called the interrogation. 7 random questions. Most of them are softballs, but might be a couple challenging.
Okay.
And then once again, I'll ask you for your wise counsel for anyone that wants to use their gifts, their talents, their passions for God's glory. So first off, here is the.
Ooh, that was intense.
Yes. So what does a Sabbath look like to you?
Oh, my golly. Pass.
See, initially I asked this question because we had the Reverend Thor Ramsey scheduled, so I thought I would put the pastor on the
put him on the no. Honestly, so okay, I'll try to be brief. There's a controversy about this. Some people believe there's a literal Sabbath, and if it is the literal Sabbath, then it is Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. That is the literal Sabbath as the Jews practice it. Mm-hmm. Some people believe it's still in effect today, like you're still supposed to observe it, and some people don't because of the new covenant. So here's how I would frame it, and I could be wrong. I will say that I could be wrong. I do think that it is very important physically, emotionally, spiritually, to have a day of rest. I have not been practicing that. I probably should. But I also think, and this is where I could be wrong, I also think that it's not a new covenant requirement to practice the Sabbath. And if we did, you know, and then some people will say, well, you know, as long as you take a day, it doesn't matter which day it is, you know. But who's right?
Right.
I tend to fall in the camp that because of the new covenant, you're not held to that standard of practicing the Sabbath. But what a Sabbath is to me, it would be a day of rest from work. But it's not just being. I mean, yes, you can relax, but it's not just being lazy. It's a day of rest and refreshing. So ideally, you're going to want to refresh in the Lord more so than maybe you have the ability to do the other 6 days of the week.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Works for me. What's question number 2 is, what's your favorite place on earth?
I usually do horrible with questions with favorite in it. Like, what's your favorite movie? I don't have one. What's your favorite? I don't know what my favorite place on earth is. But I can tell you what my favorite food is. That one I know. Do you want to know what my favorite food is?
What is it?
Pepperoni pizza with extra cheese. Hands down.
Deep dish, pan, or
it depends on the place. My favorite brand pizza right now is Round Table Pizza.
Okay.
Pepperoni and extra cheese. Delicious. So favorite place on earth. I'll tell you some favorites. I do like I do like Northern California. I've been to Colorado Springs, and that was very beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think what I would rather answer is my favorite kind of place on earth would probably be quiet and peaceful. So like a nice stream, maybe something not like off the grid, but something a little bit remote, like in the woods or something. Or I think there's a lot of Alaska is visually stunning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a cabin in Alaska with snowy capped mountains, and so I mean, like, but I don't have a favorite place that comes to mind.
Okay.
And I've never been to Alaska, so
that's where your next screenplay needs to be taking place. So that you have a reason.
You know, you titled this right. These are interrogation questions because these haven't been easy so far.
All right.
Oh my God, what keeps me up at night?
Yes.
The inability to sleep.
Ooh.
See what I did there. What keeps me up at night? I'm assuming this is more like a deep question, like what keeps me up, like what concerns me.
Right.
I would say the state of our world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just so much jacked up stuff out there, and there's so much stuff that we're ignorant of, myself included, or we might know something about it, but we don't know the scope of it because we don't want to know the scope of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of nasty. I mean, like when you look at things like human trafficking, for example, and how the United States of America is like numero uno in human trafficking, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that true? Isn't it like, I mean, I know several years ago, Atlanta was like number one.
Well, the American Super Bowl is the number one trafficking event in the world.
Holy crap. See, stuff like that should soberly wake you the crap up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they're probably people we know or people we really, really like. Like there are well-known people who we adore and appreciate and like, because they're famous or because they're a great actor or actress or whatever who are involved.
Yeah.
There are government officials who are involved. There are leaders and professing Christians involved. I mean, it's scary, and in some cases, it's an addiction that they probably don't know how to escape from, and in some cases, it's nefarious and it's all about money and power. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And when you hear horrible testimonies of satanic ritual abuse and which may also kind of lines up with human trafficking in a way. When you hear the horror stories of what Epstein's Island and all that stuff, I mean, it's like you think it's made up. You think like that's a Stephen King thing. No, like this stuff really happens. Kids are born to be satanically ritually abused.
Yeah.
It happens. So I mean, serious stuff like that, or just the overwhelmingly insane mainstream cultural narrative that people buy into. I mean, here's a big one, and I'm probably going to torque somebody with this if we have an audience. Love is love. Really? So if you're in love with your daughter, that's okay? Love is love.
Yeah.
So if you're in love with your sister, that's okay? Love is love.
Now that's a slippery slope.
See, you can't use love is love because it's based on feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on feelings. And so love is not love in the context that you want it to be.
Yeah.
You want it to be love anybody you want, but you don't really mean that, because there's even scenarios that you would probably disagree with while touting all over the place because you have something else in mind. Love is love. It's not true.
Yeah. It's kind of like the coexist bumper stickers. They really don't like.
Oh my golly.
Yeah.
I used to, oh my golly, when I'd see those bumper stickers, I would just like, one of the dumbest bumper stickers I've ever seen in my life. Hi, Deanna.
Deanna popped in. She didn't send the heart during this most recent question. She sent it a moment ago.
Okay.
But hi, Deanna. Thanks so much for joining us. So yeah, those are the kind of things that keep me up at night as well, because of the fact that
if I'm being honest, since it's an interrogation, I don't toss and turn over that stuff. I stay up at night because I can't sleep or because I want to watch something entertaining.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
That's mostly what's been keeping me up at night, not wanting to go to sleep or wanting to be entertained. So
question number 4, if you could, what's something that you wish you could go back and do over? And this could be a positive, like you want to re-experience it, or it could be
sometimes I think I want to go back and start collaborating with people way sooner than 2010. I mean, like I started the 168 Film Project journey in 2008. And then I took a year off, and then I did one in 2010, and that's when Thor and I first collaborated on the short film Skip Listening, which I think I mentioned this before, but we have a feature-length script for that now. So hint, hint, wink, wink. If anybody wants to fund a feature-length version of Skip Listening, hit us up.
Yeah.
Probably in the neighborhood of $1 million budget. Sweet spot would be 1.5 to 3, but we could probably do a decent job with $1 million budget for the scope of that script. But anyway, I think I would probably want to know that I could connect with people like I started really doing through the 168 Film Project sooner, and maybe I had some script ideas that I either started writing or, never wrote or whatever, and maybe like tackling some of that stuff Like I took a screenwriting class in at the junior college locally here in Santa Rosa. And one of the reasons I took the class was because the end project was you had to write the first 10 or 11 pages of your script. And so I knew it was going to force me to write something. And that's what I love about the 168 Film Project, by the way, 168film.com, is it forces you to finish a short film. I mean, like if you're signing up for the speed film category, there's a deadline. You have so many days to write and get ready, and then you have 168 hours to shoot, edit, and turn it in. And for years, the 168 Film Projects were my director reel, for years. So a little side plug there is, utilize the resources at your disposal. If you don't have a camera, you probably know somebody who does, or join some Facebook groups. There's all kinds of Facebook groups for different parts of the world when it comes to, connecting with other creatives, faith-based even. So, but yeah, I think I might want to reach out and collaborate on more stuff because, maybe I would have done a feature film sooner than, how old was I in 2016? Was I in my 30s or 40s? I was in my, I don't know. Maybe when I was in my 20s, I would have had a feature out, or maybe if I'd done something, in my early 20s or something. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next question. With whom do you most identify in Scripture?
Wow. Do you have a brainstorm team to come up with these questions, Dave? Usually it's like coffee or tea, milk or, but no, these are like deep questions. With whom do I most identify? Well, I'll be honest. This one's really difficult for me because I have the tendency, as I believe many people do, to elevate people in Scripture above mere humans. We look at people like, Peter and Paul, and we sort of, we know Peter denied Jesus 3 times, but, he also wrote part of the New Testament or was a major disciple. But we tend to gloss over the failure. I mean, they were human beings. And let me give a shout out to that show, The Chosen. One of my friends is an associate producer on it, Justin Overlander.
Okay.
Yeah. I love that guy. Great guy, family man, associate producer on The Chosen. Hilarious. I mean, he's got filmmaking chops, editing chops. Some of you might not know, but early on, the behind the scenes stuff, he edited that. And now he's moved up to actually helping produce content like testimonials and stuff of people who've watched the show and been changed by the show and stuff like that. And he is hilarious. He is a funny guy. Anyway, The Chosen does a great job at showing you that these people were human beings.
Mm-hmm.
They had struggles. They had temptations. They had to overcome stuff. And, you read things like, here's a classic example of not understanding context. We're in the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
I didn't just time turn that. 21st. We in the 21st century read something like tax collector, and we don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't understand that Matthew, as a tax collector, he was a traitor to his native people, and he worked for the enemy.
Yeah.
So he had a double whammy against him. His own people didn't like him, and he worked for the enemy, and he taxed the crap out of, we don't understand that in our modern day vernacular, what that means to be a tax collector at that point in time. And to know that and to see that and to see that life transformed by his encounter with Jesus through a show like The Chosen.
Yeah.
It really helps you process what you're reading in the Bible better, because you can because you can relate. I talked earlier about like you're going to find people in church people that you relate to. You're going to find people in the chosen that you relate to.
Yeah.
They were human beings like us.
And to piggyback off what you're saying, the dynamics of the relationship between Matthew now as a saved disciple and the other disciples, we kind of think, oh, everyone's on the same team, everything's perfect, hunky-dory.
Yeah, we think they're all buds, and they were at each other's. They didn't agree with each other all the time. I mean, there's this common thing that I've wrestled with for so long is like you tend to elevate people in the Bible because they were saints or whatever, but realize this: the New Testament says that if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you are a saint.
Yeah.
Letters in the New Testament say to the saints who are in Ephesus, to the saints who are, to the saints who are, So, yeah, I mean.
And one more piggyback off of what you're saying, there was such a blowback when Mary Magdalene had her backslide, her struggle.
Like what in the seriously? Have you met yourself? Have you looked at yourself in the mirror? I mean, seriously? And that's what I'm talking about. There is this tendency to elevate above where you're at these mere mortal human beings who were still tempted when they were saved. I mean, like the comment thread on the Chosen fan page can get really cray.
Yeah.
And self-righteous and like I wouldn't have done it that way. And I mean, like, and there's legitimate concerns that come up. Sure. I mean, you have to be careful when you're dealing with scripture. You do. Right. And especially when you take creative license and backstory, you have to be really careful to not stray away from the contextual tone and the characters. You know what I mean? So it's nuanced, but there's a lot of self-righteous people, and honestly, I've been one of them, and I don't like that about myself. So,
but I think we're all guilty.
Dang it, Dave! This is an interrogation.
This might be easier. Who's the coolest or most inspiring person you've met? And as a caveat,
because it's another favorite. It's another like who's the most? Who's the favorite? Who's the? I don't know that I have just one. Can I name off a few people that I've really appreciated over the years? My radio professor in college, John Buckles, helped me in a spiritual crisis. I found him to be cool and somebody I could. Let me just tell you the story real quick.
Yeah.
It was finals week, I believe. So he's hecka busy. And I'm having a spiritual crisis. Like, am I saved? Am I not saved? I mean, that's been one of my struggles over the years. Like, when am I saved? When am I not saved? Was I ever saved? All the doubt and stuff. Right. And I was having one of those moments because I was listening to a fiery preacher at the time. And man, that just sent me down a rabbit hole. And like, I got the impression, whether he intended this or not, I got the impression that it was every time you sin, you lose your salvation, which I don't believe, by the way.
Right.
But I really struggled with that for a long time. And so I was spiraling and I was defeated. And I knocked on his office door at Otterbein College. And when he saw me, he could just tell, like, oh, I'm going to have to spend some time. And he did. We spent like 45 minutes, and he was in the middle of finals week. I mean, he was in the thick of it. And that dude took 45 minutes. And honestly, usually when I visit Ohio, I try to get to see him. We go to one of our favorite pizza places there is Donato's Pizza, which I used to work for. We'll go and share Donato's Pizza, and almost every time we reminisce and meet, we mention that instance because it was so monumental in our relationship. And he sat down and talked with me, and he walked me through some things, and then later we met with his pastor, who was a really good friend, and it just so John Buckles, shout out to John Buckles, Thor Ramsey, one of my favorite people to collaborate with. I mean, I said I was a Thor Ramsey fanboy. I used to sit there and watch Bananas Comedy in my bachelor pad, single at the time, goldfish or not. But and I would just sit there and I would watch the beginning of the show, and they had these fun graphics that pop up, and Thor's image would pop up and do all these fun poses and whatnot. I was just sitting there thinking, man, what would it be like to be friends with somebody like Thor Ramsey?
Yeah.
And then I'm watching the show more, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to see if I can find these comics that are on the show on Facebook. So I looked up John Branyan, I looked up Michael Jr., and I looked up all these, funny people, and connected with them on Facebook, including Thor. And the coolest, most inspiring person, quality-wise, I would say, are people who are witty and funny, people who are genuine, and authentic. And I don't mean that as a buzzword that's going around nowadays, but I mean like somebody who's genuinely authentic. And I really appreciate pastors who are like that. I've been blessed to know a small handful of pastors in my life who are genuine, sincere, transparent, and relatable. And I really appreciate that. And I want to give one more shout out. There's somebody else who comes to mind, Beckett Cook. Beckett Cook is a really cool guy with a powerful testimony. He came out of the homosexual lifestyle, radically saved and transformed. And he is a very genuine, relatable person. And I really appreciate him. And I want to give a shout out to his book. He has a book called A Change of Affection, A Gay Man's Story of Redemption. I might have the subtitle wrong, but the title is A Change of Affection by Beckett Cook. The foreword is by Francis Chan. And it is it's a great read. I read that book faster than I read most books. I mean, I read that book in like a couple of days. It's a super easy read. He's a great writer. Whoever edited it did a great job. I mean, it's a great book. So get A Change of Affection for sure.
Definitely want to look that up. That's awesome. So final hard question is, whose story do you want to tell in a film? Whether it's a character or an actual person or just an idea.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Well, the story that I started to tell, again, I'm going to have multiple answers to this.
Yeah.
But the story that I started to write, and I think I got an A+ on it in that junior college class that I took. It was about a guy who was desperately trying to hear from God. And at the time, I was thinking I would play the guy, I would direct it. I never finished. I have yet to finish the script, but it was a great story about this guy who sets up, he writes down on his calendar, he's going to spend these days trying to hear from God. And the idea was he latches on to everybody else's way that they hear God. Like, he'll hear some person say they hear God in this scenario. Somebody else is, God speaks to them through poetry, and somebody, and so he tries all these different, he basically tries to ride the coattails of how other people hear God. Because for somebody who may be watching who doesn't know, there are God speaks to people differently. I mean, he doesn't contradict himself, and he doesn't contradict the word of God, the Bible, but he may speak to somebody through impressions, or he may speak to somebody through something they watch, or he may speak to somebody through a still small voice. Some people hear God audibly. I've known people who hear God audibly and seen the fruit of it. So some people he gives words of knowledge to, you might be in counseling or something, and somebody will be deposited a word of knowledge that there's no way they would have known it because you never told them and nobody else ever told. I mean, like, so word of knowledge. So he speaks to people differently. And so this character is somebody who doesn't know how to hear from God. He desperately wants to hear from God. And the very next time he hears somebody else's testimony about how they hear from God, he tries to do that thing. So it's a quirky comedy. I'm a quirky goofball. It's a fit, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know the ending of it yet, but I know at some point, like, you know, Mormons show up at the door and like, do you know how to hear from God? You know, so like there's different funny scenarios asking different people how they hear from God.
Jehovah's Witnesses show up and he's like, do you know how to hear from God? And they take off running.
Yeah. So that's a fun one. As far as a real person, the one that keeps coming to mind is I have had a fantastical thought of it might be cool to do a movie about Keith Green. And I know that there was a movie that was in process. They were going to make a movie. There was a script, and I don't know whatever happened to it, but this was several years ago. Like Melody Green would like post updates of like, you know, we had a meeting, they had a director, they had producers, and they had a script, and I don't know what happened, but apparently it fizzled or something. I don't know what the update is on that, but and it's been several years now. But I think that would be a really powerful story to tell. But I mean, there's so many. There's so many. I mean, I think it might be fun to do a story on Beckett Cook's testimony. You know, do a movie about that. I mean, that would be a powerful film.
Yeah.
I mean, he was radically saved. He was a sinner in a church service, and God, the Holy Spirit, fell on him, and just, I mean, he was weeping, and he was, and then it happened later in the day, and he was like, "I'm yours." I mean, wow. And he was full on in the homosexual lifestyle. He was full on of that kind of mindset and worldview and not really believing in biblical things, you know, and he was radically transformed in his thinking. And he's got a YouTube channel called The Beckett Cook Show. You should check it out. He talks about things in the culture. Like, you know, one of the things that keep you up at night is like just how crazy the ideologies and philosophies of the world are right now. Crazy.
Yeah.
And he tackles some of that stuff, and he does it in a very tender-hearted, compassionate, loving way. And that's one of the things I admire about him is he can speak the truth in love. He is a visual representation of speaking the truth in love. Beckett Cook.
I'm pulling up his channel now. And one of the things you just mentioned is, you know, kind of mirrors some that I've noticed is that a lot of people don't want to allow the idea that you can leave that lifestyle.
Oh, I would say, well, certainly in the mainstream cultural narrative, absolutely not. They don't know what to do with stories like that. They either think that they're fooling themselves, and you can tell by talking with and listening to Beckett Cook that he's not fooling himself. He had an encounter with the living God, no question. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of spin about it. Yeah, the mainstream cultural narrative is insane. It is absolutely insane. And I would even hazard to say that half the country doesn't even buy into it. They might say they do, they might virtue signal about it, but, you know, again, you say love is love. They're like, oh yeah, how about these siblings over here who want to get married? Is that okay? You're going to find something where they're not going to be able to apply the love is love thing, whether it's, you know, adult child or siblings or something that's just like way out there, you know, bestiality, something. You're going to be able to not go love is love. You know, it's just one of those fluffy, lovey-dovey things that sounds all warm and fuzzy, but it's full of lies.
Yeah.
And deceit.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you got the Beckett Cook show up there on the screen now. Thanks for doing that. Yeah, and he tackles cultural narratives like this. Like there's a new documentary on Netflix called Pray Away. And he tackles that. Somebody who came out of the homosexual lifestyle tackles that whole thing. And he gets to the core issue of why the Exodus movement failed. It isn't because they were fooling themselves in the sense that, well, that's just the way they were born. It's not that. It's a belief. When your belief changes, your behavior changes. And so many people try to do it the other way around. Change your behavior and that'll change how you believe. When your core belief changes, your behavior follows.
Yeah. And that's
whatever it is you believe.
That's why we describe being a Christian as a relationship. When you have that moment where you fall in love with Christ, you change because, like, you're married. I'm married.
Changes you.
He changes
you. You can't change yourself in that way. Beckett Cook could not have saved himself like he experienced. That was a radical transformation from the living God himself.
Amen.
Or none. I mean, like, hands down, radical transformation from the living God.
That would be a great story, and that would be a deviation from your norm because most of your stuff has been along the lines of comedy. So to dive in and tell a serious story, I think will be really cool to see from you.
Yeah, I am attached to a number of non-comedies, like, some thrillers and stuff, but some of them are bigger budget and but yeah, my niche does tend to be comedy, and I love doing comedy because I love to laugh. And I think it's important for people to laugh. Laughing is healing. Laughing ministers to people. And if you have a poignant message, I like to call it poignant laughter. If you have a poignant message like Church People does, and you can help people laugh at some of the goofiness that they've seen and possibly done themselves, then it tears down those walls. Laughter helps bring people together, and you can deposit quite a bit of truth after some laughter.
Mm-hmm. It literally breaks the walls down. It tills the soil so that a seed can be planted.
Yep.
And I've seen it with doing improv and the things that we do, is that it really makes the heart open, because when you get a group of people to laugh together, they've admitted something about themselves, which automatically makes them united, even if they don't know it or understand it.
Yeah, I mean, can you think of one other example that quickly unites people than laughing together? It's huge. It's such a powerful ministry tool. And some people balk at clean comedy because it's cheesy. There is non-cheesy clean comedy out there.
Yeah.
And I would even argue, and as many do, you have to be funnier than the mainstream comic who uses foul language and tons of raunchy jokes and all that. You have to be. It's harder to be funny and not do that thing, to not do that kind of stuff. And so when you accomplish that, that's comedy gold.
Yeah. And here's the secret. We serve the ultimate creator, and we're in his image. So therefore we should be just as creative.
And who created laughter? I mean, that's the other thing that, there's a lot of religious fuddy-duddies out there. God created laughter.
Yep.
God created joy. And I know I went through an encounter in my life where around the time that I met Thor, that I really felt like I needed to laugh. And I was under the impression that if I did do something, if I did do a faith-based project, then I felt like it had to be heavy and meaty. Where's the meat kind of a thing, and tears. But again, I'm a quirky goofball. And even when I did stuff like that, especially if I acted in it, my quirk still came out. There was still quirkiness in it, And so I went through a time where I realized I needed to laugh. I felt like the Lord was changing my heart in that way, that I needed to laugh. And that was around the time I started collaborating with Thor, and or shortly thereafter, I started collaborating with him, and I love it. So once again, if you have the means and you want to see more, you know how to find us.
Yep. churchpeoplefilm.com or ChristopherShawnShaw.com. And Christopher, the final question I'm going to ask before I let you go is, for anyone that wants to use their gifts for God's glory, whether their talents, their passions, or even redeeming the experiences they've been through, what would your wise counsel be for that person?
Well, I like to preface this kind of a question with, if God tells you to do something other than what I tell you to do, then listen to him. Okay? So he may have a better strategy than what I'm going to tell you. But I like to tell people that you don't have to sit around and wait anymore to do something. If you're an actor, you don't have to wait for your phone to ring to see if you got the audition, or if you produce your own stuff. If you got one of these, there's a really good camera on there. You can do monologues. You can, if you're a filmmaker or cinematographer, you can start shooting stuff. You can even buy different lenses to put over this. You don't need a Red. You don't need an Arri Alexa. Use what you have. And when you're ready to move up to the next thing, if you don't have it or you can't afford it, you probably know somebody or can get to know somebody who does, So I like to say, surround yourself with like-minded people who want to create and who fill in the gaps where you're not strong in. I'm an okay writer. I'm not Thor Ramsey writer, So when I have an idea or something, or if I get a concept for a short or whatever, and if I don't think I have the chops to write it, I reach out to somebody like Thor, or somebody like Scott Wood, or somebody like Wes Halula, who was one of the writers on Church People. I reach out to people who know how to do that stuff. Like I said before, I'm not a cinematographer. I'm not a gaffer. I reach out to somebody who knows cinematography and who knows gaffing. I know how to collaborate with them and communicate my vision, and then we collaborate on the shot. But as far as the lighting and how good it looks and all that stuff, I have to admit where I lack. So admit where you lack, excel at what you're good at, and surround yourself with people who do the other stuff. One of the things that'll tank a project quicker than anything is the writing. If you're not a good writer, and you have to be honest with yourself on this, almost everybody who writes a script thinks that it was a deposit from God, or it's their baby, it's their creation, it's hilarious, or it's this, that, or the other. Get outside feedback and be honest with yourself. If it's not quality, find somebody who does quality, and surround yourself with those people in every aspect. If your short film or feature film needs animation and you're not an animator and you want to YouTube it, yes, you can learn great stuff that way on YouTube. You probably want to hire somebody who can do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who already has the experience.
And then learn from them.
Yes. It's not that you can't learn the stuff. Some people learn different things from necessity and whatnot, and that's great. But big leap from my first 168 film project short to my second one. There was a couple years in between, but on my first one, I was the lead actor, I was the writer, I was the director, I was the cameraman, I was the craft server. I wore like 6 or 7 different hats on that thing, and it was ridiculous. There are people who can do that and do that well. I don't recommend it. My second 168, which was Skip Listening, which was a massive improvement, I produced and directed. I wasn't the editor. I sat with the editor. I looked at the editor's cut. I gave notes. I mean, yeah, you still do that as a director, but I wasn't the main guy. I got to shoot it and take a day off.
Yeah.
And then go in and sit down and watch what he had, and tweak it from there. Yeah, so surround yourself with like-minded people who are good at what they do. I mean, quite frankly, surround yourself with people who are better than you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you love church people, that's not because of Thor Ramsey and me solely. That is because of a team of talented people in front of and behind the camera and in post-production who put that all together. I mean, just on the shoot itself, there was like somewhere around, I think, 75 to 80 people, cast and crew.
Wow.
I mean, and that's just the shoot. I mean, then you got post-production and stuff after that, and distribution, and Collide Media Group did that trailer. That trailer is incredible. None of us did that. Collide Media Group did that, and they knocked it out of the park. They tell you what the movie's about without giving the movie away, and it's upbeat, and they nailed it.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the trailer, is that some of the funny is there, but they don't ruin everything, because
I can honestly say also, and some people would agree, I don't know if you would agree or not, but the funniest stuff in the movie isn't even in the trailer.
Right.
There's funnier stuff in the movie than it's in the trailer, and the trailer's great. So they nailed it, knocked it out of the park with that trailer. The editor for that trailer was a guy named Scott Edge. He's part of the team at Collide, or they utilize. I don't know if he's part of the team or they utilize him or what, but Collide Media Group put it together. The editor was Scott Edge, and just nailed it, knocked it out of the park. So yeah, surround yourself with people who know how to do what you don't know how to do, and bring the story alive together and do quality work.
Yeah,
I think one of the traps people fall into is they try to do too much, especially on their first outing.
Right.
And there are anomalies. There are people who can do that. I mean, there's a guy on YouTube who does great YouTube videos about his filmmaking experience. He's won awards. His name is the YouTube channel is D for Darius. His name is Darius something. Black guy, really, really talented. He can do it. He can shoot it. He can do the sound. He can edit it. He can do it. And he probably taught himself or learned through maybe some schooling. I don't remember. But probably mostly just trial and error and taught himself. Yes, you can do that. But it's so much better with a team who knows what they're doing. So much better.
Oh, yeah. And not only is it that they know better, but having extra sets of eyes as you're producing and creating something.
Yes.
And especially when it's a like-minded group, especially when you're Christian productions, having like-minded Christians say, wait, maybe that'll be a little bit heretical or
right. Yeah. I mean, in life, you need a second set of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the scriptural model. I mean, even when they went out and evangelized, they did it 2 by 2. They weren't Lone Rangers. They went out in sets of 2. We need each other. This isn't meant to be a Lone Ranger marathon run. This is meant to be a run, a marathon with exhortation and correction and encouragement and camaraderie.
If you look at Jesus' ministry, what did he do? He didn't go by himself. He built a team before he even started the official ministry.
Mm-hmm.
So
they needed each other.
Yeah.
They needed each other.
Absolutely.
And we need each other.
Absolutely. So, Christopher, it's been a blast. We have gone, this is probably the longest show I've ever done, but it's awesome.
You should have an award of some kind for people who actually watch the whole thing.
Well, she's right here in the kitchen eating some fries. So I don't know if Deanna hung out with us for a long time, but it's been a blast. I'm so looking forward to seeing church people getting more people's hands because it is really a fun film. It's not cheesy. The trailer does not give it all away, but it's not just comedy. There is something very poignant that's said there at the end.
Yep, I like to call it poignant laughter.
So check it out, churchpeoplefilm.com. Sign up for the updates. And Christopher, it's been so much fun having you back on, and praying that Church People blows up on DVD and digital release and on demand, so that we can see some more stuff, including Skip Listening, the movie Adam and Eve, or the Revenge
of Adam and Eve. Yeah, and we're working on a time travel movie through a biblical lens right now. And so I mean the script for it, not the movie itself, but
Sure.
we're working on the script for it. So lots of stuff in the hopper that needs funding. And Something Smells Funny on Tubi, streaming for free now. Go to, I think it's tubitv.com, or just go to facebook.com/something smells funny, like he has on the screen right there, and you'll see the trailer for it. And there's also information there with a direct link to watch the episodes for free. So we're hoping to do more of that too. Scott Wood would love to do more of those. Dr. Watson would love to do more, but they were basically Dr. Watson funded, and I don't know if you know this or not, but shooting stuff is expensive.
Yes.
So especially the bigger the team and the bigger the number of people involved, I mean it's costly.
Yeah.
And now with COVID regulations on set and stuff, I haven't been on a set since 2019.
Wow.
So, and if I do go on a set again soon, it'll probably be with COVID regulations, which jacks the cost up even more.
Yeah.
So,
testing, masks.
Yeah, you have to have a COVID compliance officer on set. I think you have to have a nurse on set. You got to do the testing, and those tests, depending on what kind of a deal you get, they can be as expensive as like $125. I've heard. I mean, like,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, multiply that times the number of people in your cast and crew, and then and that's on top of cameras and lighting and all the other stuff. So it's costly.
Yeah.
So we would love to have sponsors and/or investors for Something Smells Funny as well, and do more episodes with some more of your favorite comedians.
Yeah. And maybe two of those new comedians that you work with in the future are our guests next week. Michelle Van Dusen and June Colson. They will be our guests next week.
Nice transition.
Hey, I'm not the best color man in the business for no reason. But yeah, check out next week's show, and check out all of our episodes on the Creative Motion Network. You can see some of our guests' work on there, including, I believe, How I Met My Father is on Creative Motion Network.
I think it is there, yes. And so is Wireless. That's
Wireless.
A fun one. It's a mobster comedy,
which stars one of our previous guests, Jerry
De La Sala, Josh Murray,
who I have to
Amy
with.
Sutherland,
Yeah.
David Shark Freylake, and Tyler A. Johnson. Yeah, that's a fun one. Thor is not in that one, but he wrote it. So
okay,
still Thor Ramsey humor. Yeah, that's a fun one. Wireless. Definitely check that out. And How I Met My Father. And I think Skip Listening is on there too, if I'm not mistaken. I think they have it on Creative Motion Network.
I can't remember if I saw it there or on. I think it's also on 24 Flicks. Skip Listening.
Oh, is it? Yeah, okay.
Where I watched it, but yeah, a lot of great stuff on Creative Motion Network, and a lot more great stuff coming from our guest Christopher Shawn Shaw, and also Thor Ramsey. Your family first. So unfortunately, he had to take care of kid, or not unfortunately, but unfortunately for our show, he had to take care of his kids. But fortunately for him, and he's got. That's a horrible transition. I had one good transition. I should have ended the show then.
Man. And yet we're still talking.
Yes. So we'll call cut on this, and we will see you next Monday night.
That's a wrap.